Welcome to Voices from the Field podcast presented by Extra Innings Softball, where the stories are real, the conversations are honest, and the game goes way beyond the field. We're bringing you insight, inspiration, and all things softball from the people shaping the sport. Welcome back to another episode of Voices from the Field. Today, we have a very special guest, someone that we talk about probably pretty often. You're probably tired of me talking about her. But it's my own sister, Presley Lively. She is a rising sophomore at the University of South Alabama. So we're kind of here to talk about all things recruiting and her experience with it. Her being a 2024 graduate, she has, besides for Macy, Carrie's daughter, she has the most experience with the new roles and the September 1 date and all that fun stuff. And so we think it'd be a really cool way to kind of kick off September 1. When this episode is released, we'll be really creeping up on that date. So really think it'd be a great way for recruits in the class of 2027, parents, coaches, anybody that's about to approach that September 1 date to kind of just get a feel for maybe what to expect and things like that. So with all that being said, Presley, if you want to just introduce yourself and then kind of give us a brief summary of your recruiting process, what that looked like, all the things.
Presley, I play softball at South Alabama. I'm going to be a sophomore this year. A brief overview of how my recruiting process kind of went. I want to start from before September 1st, so like a month or two leading into it, just reaching out to coaches and making sure they know my name so that they know I'm interested. I kind of made like a list of top 10 schools that I'd be interested in and made sure I reached out to them multiple times so that they knew I was interested in them, because coaches like to know that you're interested in them before they show too much interest in you. I also recommend making a little highlight video of maybe your past summer or your past school ball season, just for the people who didn't get to watch you play over the summer. I know that they like to watch you play in person before they might want to recruit you, but sometimes you're not lucky to have that. So I'll just make a quick little highlight video of some of your bats or pitching. If you're a pitcher, your games where you're pitching, your defensive highlights, all the above, just so some coaches who didn't get to see you play in person can just watch you have a little bit of knowledge of how you play your game. On September 1st, obviously, people hype up the big, when it hits midnight, people calling you and all that stuff. I had one school call me on September 1st at 12 a.m. And I mean, I had a few texts from other schools for sure, but they mostly reached out via call. Majority of the schools did it throughout the next day. So I wouldn't put too much pressure on staying up for that and being ready for that. They know that you probably, I don't know, I think you might have school. It might be Labor Day that Monday, actually.
Labor Day, yeah, this year.
So you might be I had school the next day, so they kind of had to know that I had to wake up at 7 a.m. to go to my classes for the next day. So they're going to understand if you're not able to answer the phone at 12 a.m. on a school night. It's not the biggest deal. So with that being said, obviously this year's a little different for some of y'all, but just making sure that they know that your life doesn't revolve around answering the phone 24/7. So, I mean, obviously be on your phone, be aware for the phone calls and the texts, and respond as quick as possible, but don't put too much pressure on just staying up for that moment. I would just say throughout the recruiting process, obviously, like I said, I had a few texts and a few calls, and then throughout September 1st day, I reached out more to some more coaches. But the recruiting process, it starts on September 1st. It's not like that's the end and that's when you're going to get offered. That's just the beginning. That's when they can officially talk to you. So again, don't put too much pressure on that being like the day. Like that's just the start of a day. That's just the time period that you can officially get contacted. So I didn't commit to South Alabama until I think it was like 2 days before Christmas, actually. So like December. So I don't know, 3.5 months later. So obviously I would recommend, obviously some people have different plans. So like your plan might not be the way I had my plan, but I definitely let myself think about it and visited other schools before picking one school. I really think that's important to look at all your options and get to know every single coach and every single team before just picking your team that you think you would be interested in. With that being said, I think I visited on all but one of the schools who contacted me during my recruitment, and I don't even think it didn't work out for the school that I didn't go to. So I went to 5 or 6 visits before I picked a school. So I just would recommend really getting to know all your coaches and all of the people who are reaching out and all the campuses, because some schools might not be what you think they are and some schools might be better than you think they are. So I'd recommend that. And then throughout your fall season, continuing to reach out to those coaches and send your schedules, just because I know for me personally, the school I ended up at wasn't necessarily my top runner when I was getting recruited at the very beginning of September 1st. I actually don't know if that was where I thought I would go. and I ended up going that way. I say that because my sister played at Troy, and so South Alabama isn't and Troy aren't very friendly people to each other. So I didn't really have much of an interest in South Alabama to begin with, just because I grew up thinking the complete opposite of going to South Alabama. So I would just definitely not put all your pressure on the first day, and not even the first month or first 2 months. I mean, definitely keep in contact with the schools that contacted you, because sometimes people do put a deadline on things. I was lucky enough to where I really only had a deadline for one school maybe, and they still were pretty lenient with me because they knew that it's your next 4 years of your career. So like, you're not picking for the next semester or next year, you're picking for 4 years. So just knowing that this is the school I want to go to, this is the people I want to be around. So on my visits, especially, I would recommend and just suggest and take this advice as a piece of advice I have for you all, is just to really think about where you're going and where you're at and the people you're with. I know a few of my visits, I went there and I just didn't necessarily like the city I was in. And like, it wasn't even a coach thing. I liked the coaches, but I didn't really like where I would have to live. And I didn't really fit with the environment that the place had for me. So like, even if it's more than coaches, it's where you're going to live for 4 years too. So like, I knew that I didn't want to live there for 4 years. So I didn't want to be necessarily how far away from home I was going to be. So that crossed off my list, because that's not where I wanted to be a person, not even just an athlete. I didn't want to be a person there. That wasn't where I'd fit in. So then I went to my next three options, where I was pretty close, were the ones I actually liked, and I could see myself going to all three different places. And that's where it kind of gets hard, is the places where you realize you like kind of all three, and you're not necessarily leaning towards one or the other. You're just kind of trying to figure it out. And I think going on all those visits really helped me, because I knew when I went to South Alabama, it was, first off for me, it's a good distance from home, 3.5 hours from me. So like, not too far, not too close. And the people there were just great. I actually met one of my coaches now. She was actually a player whenever I was getting recruited. And so I met her, and she was great. And now I get to she was a senior, I think, when I was getting recruited. So I wouldn't have ever played with her. But then I got lucky enough, she's actually one of my coaches now. So people stick around, and people are going to be there longer than you think. So just knowing that you fit in with that community. And I knew that I fit in with that community very well. We had the same personalities, kind of, same moral beliefs, same, all the above. I mean, more than I can even imagine. They was all great. So it's more than, I was just going to the point where it's more than just the coaches. It's the people you're at and the place you're at too. So when I finally got to the decision I was going to go to South Alabama, it was mostly just because I realized that this was the place I wanted to be, where I could just be a student there. If softball didn't work out for me, you never know what's going to happen in the next 4 years of your career. You never know if you're going to be healthy or if things just don't work out. So I knew that I could be a student at South Alabama and be happy, and I could also be an athlete at South Alabama and be happy. So that's really what led me to my decision and helped me out a lot.
I love hearing your story because it's very well grounded, and obviously your oldest sister Katie gave you all that advice, so I'll throw that plug in there. But I love how grounded it is, that it's more than just being a softball athlete. Because when I was going through it with my daughter, they roll out the red carpet, you go to all these big games, and I was like, just remember, at the end of the day, that's 20 days of your life at a school, because there's only probably 5 football games a year. So you're not talking about it. So you start saying and putting those things in perspective, that it's 20 days that you get to experience that one day throughout 4 years, you can start looking at a bigger picture. And my daughter experienced the same thing. There was a lot of places that she liked the coaches, she liked the team, and she was like, I don't want to live in this town. Like, I just don't like this town. And it was, I think that was the bigger part. And that was something that I had to be really quiet as a mom, because I knew she wasn't going to be comfortable in those towns. And so we stayed an extra day and we traveled around, and I took her places and looked at stuff, and she looked at me and she's like, I can't live in this big of a city. And I was like, okay, because I know my kid's a country kid. Like, she's a country girl. Like, it's not going to work going from, population 20,000 to 2.2 million, and she's going to be comfortable. Like, she wouldn't have even lasted a week. But those are things that they have to experience on their own. And I love how you said that. What I would like to ask you is, what was there any big surprise to you from like what you thought the recruiting process was going to look like, or the experience was going to be, and how it actually turned out? And what was it, good, bad, or ugly?
Say, again, this isn't going to be everyone's kind of situation, but I was surprised at how much time and lenience I got to make a decision. I thought it was going to be really scrunched, because you kind of hear like people being like, well, people in the year before me, because I think the year before me was one of the first years they did like September 1st, maybe it was 2, I think it was that year actually.
Yeah.
And people were committing like in September. And I was told that they were put on time crunches, all this stuff. So I was fully prepared to have to make my decision really quick. And that really gave me anxiety going into it, that like I'm going to have to pick my school within a month of, that's a lot of work, pressure on me. That stressed me out. And so I was pleasantly surprised on how generous the coaches were to me with their time. And I know that's not how it works for every single college and for every single person, and I completely understand that. But for me personally, they were really gracious to me with how much time they gave me. So I was surprised by that. I would also say I was surprised on how much, like, it kind of changed. It wasn't like September 1st and the first offer a school gave you was going to be the one that necessarily stayed. I mean, some schools it was the one that stayed, but as my fall continued and if I performed better or if I performed better or if my academics went up, I took the ACT a few times. And so one of the times it went up and it happened to get me a higher scholarship for another school. So like if I would have committed September 2nd when I got my offer, I would have had a lower scholarship than I committed when I was in December because it happened to work out that I got a better academic score. It just happened to work out for me is what I'm saying. So I was surprised at how like it could fluctuate. I thought it was kind of a set thing of this is what I was going to like happen. And then it did evolve and it changed over time. So I think that's also like a thing where it's like, if you kind of let it sink in and like just live the process, the true like recruitment process, how much things can change within the fall. I mean, people reached out that didn't reach out September 1st, that reached out the end of October, that never reached out to me in the beginning of September, that I ended up not going to that school, but I would have had that opportunity if I wouldn't have let the process ride out is all I'm trying to say, I guess. But those are two surprises for me that kind of helped me out a lot.
I like that.
Yeah, taking your time. I know that's a process. And that's what Carrie has said as many times is that September 1 date is the start of it. Kind of what you said too, Presley. Like it's not September 1, you got to commit, by 5 p.m. on September 2nd, or you're not going to go anywhere. And I love that you mentioned too that there were schools that reached out in October that you hadn't heard from September 1. So I think a lot of kids get really discouraged, that first week if they don't get the schools that they wanted to reach out or even any schools at all reach out. And they kind of think, oh man, like, well, I guess I'm, not going to get recruited. And it's like, no, it changes. Like it can change so fast. I want to touch on talking about telling other schools no, how you kind of go about the process of telling these other coaches no. Because it's hard. It's a hard thing to go through. And I think it's a maturity thing and all that. So kind of give me, some tips or just that experience with, how do you go about that communication process? Maybe, if you go on a visit to a school and you're like, I don't know where I'm going to go, but I know I'm not going to go there. Like, how quickly did you make that decision? How did you make that decision to like when to call them? Did you call? I know your answer, but did you call them? And kind of how did you go about that in a way? Because communication is really important. And I think a lot of times players will just blow coaches off or just send them a text being like, hey, I don't want to go there anymore. Like, how did you go about that process of kind of eliminating schools and how you communicated that to the coaches?
Yeah. I mean, it was really hard for me. I'm a very indecisive person, so I was like trying to figure it out. And so I didn't want to cut people off too early. But once I went on a few of my visits, again, like I said, I knew I didn't want to live somewhere and I didn't really like the place. So if I know I'm not going to go there, there's no point in dragging it along. I mean, I knew that wasn't the school for me. And so some of my schools, they kind of towards the end, they'll put, not like rush you, but like, hey, like we need to know, like, is there even a possibility? And so when I knew that there wasn't really a possibility of me going to that school, I wasn't that interested. Yeah, I mean, I called them. I texted them before and was like, hey, can I call? And then we had the conversation. And it is hard because, I mean, you build a relationship with these people over the recruitment process. I mean, they want you to go to their school when you're interested in their school and their program. So you build that constant relationship because, I mean, there's a lot of communication that goes into the recruitment process. And that also was a surprise, I guess, a shock to me. I could have mentioned that is how much communication that it really is involved. I mean, I'd be in constant communication with all the coaches that were recruiting me. And so we built that relationship. So, I mean, I would definitely recommend calling them. I mean, even if that's not what they want to hear, like it's just a respect thing. I mean, they put their time into you. So the least you could do is just return the favor and tell them that you don't want to go there respectfully. So my first 2 schools that I knew that I wasn't going to go there, I definitely reached out to them earlier. Then I kind of had it narrowed down to certain two or three schools. So that was a harder one because the longer you build that relationship, the harder it really is because the more you just put into them. But I would just recommend, sending them a text beforehand to ask don't just call them randomly. You never know what they're doing. Like, I mean, mine was during the holidays. So like, I didn't want to call the coaches and be like, and then be in the middle of family Christmas. And I'm like, dang, I'm not going to your school, ruin their Christmas or something.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah. So I would definitely recommend just shooting them a text beforehand, making sure it's completely fine. And then also, I would recommend when you do choose the school that's right for you, if you haven't yet reached out to the coaches that you don't want to go to, I called them before I called my coaches I was committing to, just because I feel like once you fully commit, like I wanted to have nothing left to do. Like that was the school I was all in. I had no communication with any other coaches. So I'd already taken care of that beforehand before I officially called my coaches to commit to their school. So I'd recommend doing that too. I feel like that's just a kind of a level of respect thing of like, I've already told them like I'm all in. Like there's no going back now. So that's what I would recommend.
Well, let me ask you this, and you don't have to mention schools and all that kind of stuff because it's really not about the schools. Did you have, like, in your experience, because you said you went on 5 to 6 different trips, how similar were they? How different were they? How much time did you spend with student athletes, or how much time did you spend with coaches? How transparent was everybody? Was there any time that you went, whoa, red flag, I might have liked it, but something was just said or done? You don't have to tell the specifics, but like,
Yeah.
how did that play out? Because there are so many horror stories out there of certain recruiting trips where people just went, oh my gosh, I knew right away, I'm out, like I can't do this, or they might have been in love with the program, in love with the coach, and met the team and went, whoa, Nelly, I don't want to spend my time with these people. So anything that you can share that's really kind of inside stuff, because I think the best way for this 2027 class that's coming up is to talk to other people. And I think I gave this comparison to Katie the other day, and it's going to probably make you go, oh my gosh, but it's almost like, and I relate more to like when I found out I was pregnant, like every pregnant woman comes up to you and tells you the horror stories of their delivery. And I'm like, no, I'm fired up. Like, wait, like you stop, and I had two, so my two were so different. That's what I made it to where people, I never say how my delivery was unless they say, hey, what was it like? What happened? Because I'm like, look, I had two and they're totally opposite.
Yeah.
It's a little bit about that. Like, what are some of those experiences? What were there any red flags, anything that you go, man, 2027, let me share this with you?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them kind of share the same format. Usually I went to a football game and then I spent the night some nights. So I hung out with the team with all my visits, but obviously the far ones I had to spend the night because I'm 12 hours away, so there was no going back and forth. It was just there. So but yeah, definitely I know at South, I think this is one of the only schools I did this at. I got to meet with the players without the coaches in there and without our parents in there too. My parents were in there for some of it, but then we were just us two, me and the other girl who was getting recruited there. So that was really cool that we got to talk to the players like in a setting that wasn't spending the night at their house. I liked how South Alabama set up a time slot and like a location for me and my other recruit to talk to these players one-on-one and about softball and about their experience here. So it wasn't as pressure to do it in a setting where it's like on your official visit and you're spending the night in their room and it's like not time. So I like that personally. I love South Alabama. I love that part. But I mean, all my schools definitely let me see the players. Some schools more than others, and so I think that's also something you should kind of take a sign as if how much time you're spending with the players one on one, just because it's easier to learn more about them and their actual opinion of the school whenever they're alone rather than when you're in a whole group or you're with the coaches themselves. But I wouldn't say I necessarily had a huge red flag from any of the schools I went to. I mean, like I said, most of them were just, I just wasn't really feeling it. The only schools were like, I wouldn't even consider a red flag. I just knew that I didn't really want to go there was when I knew like what I wanted to do as an athlete and if their views of what they wanted me to do versus what I like thought I wanted to do as the next 4 years were different. That kind of was maybe not a red flag, but like a miscommunication where I was like, I don't know if that's how I want to do that. Like, I'm a slapper. And so certain schools kind of wanted me to work on my hitting more. And I don't really hit very much. Like for power, like I slap because my slap is a power slap. So when they mentioned that they wanted me to maybe just like get stronger and like hit for power. Like that wasn't necessarily what I was interested in. And I'm not saying you can't kind of change what you need to do for your coaches, but like I'm a slapper, like that's me. So like you're recruiting me as a slapper, I wanted to be a slapper. So I knew at South Alabama they were recruiting me to be a slapper. And if I need to learn how to hit, they'll help me do that too, but it wasn't taking away my slap. So that was important to me. And so I knew that any school that didn't really want me as a slapper, I wasn't going to be as interested in. So that maybe wasn't a red flag, but just was something that I knew was immediately going to not make me want to go there.
So let me ask you this: are there any golden nuggets that you can share? And this would not just even be 27s, 2028s, in the way you communicated, be it text, be it emails, that really work. Like, man, this morning, or when I sent it, how I sent it, how often I sent things. Was there anything that you would say, hey, make sure you always do this, or man, I did this and don't do this?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, before and during, I guess, your recruitment process, just I emailed a lot of coaches and kind of make it a little personable. I know you don't want to write like 20 handwritten emails with different things, but try to personalize it a little bit so they know that you're not just mass sending this to so many different people. I mean, at least mention their university and maybe something you like about it, or maybe their name, anything that just personalizes it a little bit so they know that you actually put thought into the email and didn't just click send. That helped a lot. I would say before the recruiting process. Once you get recruiting, it goes more towards text, I would say, and call, just because it's more of a personal relationship you're building. But one thing I would really say is make sure that you give the same back that they give you, if that makes sense. So, I mean, you don't have to wait for them to text first every single time. Like, show that you have interest, and so they know, like, hey, she's thinking about us on a day that she doesn't have to think about us. So that's really like something that I would kind of hone in on, is just communicating back and like starting conversations as well and making it a relationship, because it is a relationship. Like your relationship with your future coach it needs to be maybe not like casual, but somewhat like it's a coach, it's someone you know personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you're human. So I just give the same energy that they give back. So I mean, if they're not giving you a lot of energy, then I'm not saying go spam call them and text them all the time, because obviously it's not working. But just if they're maybe every once in a while to be like, hey coach, like could we call today and just talk about some things? I mean, they do like that a lot, and they like to build that relationship. I can't talk about how many conversations I had with Coach McCain, our hitting coach at South Alabama, about, I don't even know. Like, I don't even know what we're talking about. It wasn't even about softball. I think one time I was at my friend's soccer game and we talked about soccer, and I don't know anything about soccer. But we talked about it for like 2 hours, just because that's the relationship you're building with your coaches. So just having that relationship where like you can build that relationship on a not a casual level, but somewhat casual, where it's like, hey, like we had that relationship where you're not just like some stranger who I need to like formally text like, hello coach, whatever. And like it just make that a relationship that's like just back and forth, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Because that just helps a lot, and that really shows you who they are as a person as well.
I like that.
Yeah, no. And I think a lot of people, they go about the recruiting process of like, well, let me just see who wants me, and, sit back and everyone come to me. And I think at the beginning, that's like, if you want to do that, you can, especially if you are like really highly recruited. You go, girl. If Patty Gasso's calling you, you do you. But in the sense of like, it's more of a relationship. And I think that's the only way that you can get to know that coaching staff and that university, is like making it a two-sided relationship. It's kind of like dating in a sense. Like you're like getting to know that school, and might be able to, if you talk to them more than just at one time a week, getting to know them and their interest and their conversations. If conversations are super easy and light and fun, like that's good to know as a coach. Or on the other side of it, it being like super professional, because it's like you said, they're your coach, and so it's, if you feel like you can't be yourself around them, then that might not be.
Yeah, exactly.
Just again, that's their coach, or that's going to be your coach one day.
You had 5 or 6 official visits that you actually took and you went, and that's when they roll out the red carpet and all that kind of stuff. How many of those, when you went down to make that final decision, you said there was 2 or 3 you were really interested in. Did you ever go back, not on an official visit, maybe to go watch a game or a practice or another thing in a different setting where it's not the official trip, that maybe made you make the decision, yes, I want to go, or no, this is not why I know I don't want to go?
Yeah, I did actually do that, especially with the schools that are in driving range. Again, the ones where it was like a flight away. no, I wasn't able to make another trip. But the ones where I could drive there, like the ones I live in Alabama, so the state of Alabama, I did. I went back to, I think, two of the schools that were my final two. And I talked to the coaches one time because, I don't know, I guess we like kind of like not scheduled it, but like could talk to each other. And then I went on as a regular academic visit to one of them because, again, you're going for more than just athletes, you're going for the university itself. And so I went like on a regular academic visit that wasn't even involved with softball. I didn't even see them that day. And I don't even know if they knew I was there. Maybe, I forgot. But like it wasn't, I just went. And then one time actually when I was in the midst of like trying to figure out and I was stressed and my dad knew I was stressed, he took me down to Mobile on like a random, I don't even know, random day. And we went on a day trip to Mobile and just like looked around about where I would be living if I chose to go there. Because when I went to Mobile for my first visit, South Alabama for my first visit, it was kind of a rushed one because I had a tournament the next day. So like went on my visit, ate dinner, and then we left. Like it wasn't like I stuck around very long. So I feel like I needed some more clarity on like what the whole place was about. So I did go back to Mobile for just a day trip with my dad. Again, didn't go for softball, didn't even check out, I don't even know if they know I was there again, but like just went with my dad just to check it out. So yeah, I would definitely recommend doing that, especially if you're torn between like what schools you need to go to. If you feel like you didn't get enough out of your visit, which sometimes you don't. I mean, they can't take you around the whole city of Mobile or wherever you're at. So like you might not get all you need. So yeah, I would recommend doing that. It really helped me a lot, and it did kind of give me the clarity that I needed, especially since I was able to make the trip there and back in one day. That like,
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
because I wanted to be in driving distance from home. So like, even though I didn't want to be super close, I wanted to make sure I could get back in case of emergency. So that kind of helped me out knowing that I can do this because we just did it today. So yeah, it was great. It helped a lot.
How much time did you spend exploring before any of the like visits and talking of kind of like what you really want? Like, I don't want to go any more than 5 hours away from home. I want to be able to maybe study this. I want this size of university. How much time did you actually, because I mean, let's face it, you guys are 16 when you're going through this. I mean,
Yeah.
you should be picking out prom shoes and that should be the stress. So when you think how much time did you spend? Who helped you? Was it mom, dad? Obviously, you had Katie. You have some of those learning experiences, but did you sit down and come out and say, hey, this is what I want? Or was it a gradual process as you were going through the recruiting process based on who showed interest?
Right. I definitely did some research beforehand because, again, Katie did help me a lot, and my dad and my travel ball coach helped me a lot, which I would recommend if your travel ball coach doesn't really know how to get you the recruiting process, to maybe find someone who can help you, because my travel ball coach helped me a lot and gave me a lot of tips. Most of the things I'm talking about are actually like directly from him. So it was him as well. But I beforehand, maybe the summer, going into the summer before my my junior year for recruitment, I mean, there's a lot of colleges in the country. So like you can't email all of them, and not all of them are going to know your name. So me and my dad, I think, and my sister tried to tell me to do this, but she wasn't actually with me when I did it, but she did help me out a little bit. Just went through like all the schools that I would be interested in. Like I knew I didn't want to go so far. Yeah, I didn't want to go across the entire country. I wanted to stay majority. I mean, there were a few schools I went that were 12 hours away, but those were just some like random ones. But like I knew I wanted to be somewhat close. I knew I wanted to stay mostly in the South just because that's what I grew up in and that's kind of the environment I wanted to stay in. It's just a different, like, people want different things. And then I did go through the colleges that were near me in the actual academics they gave. I mean, I'm studying business, so most schools have business. I mean, I think all schools have business, so that wasn't really a problem. But my goal is to go to law school after, so some of the schools I did email had really good law schools, so I could go into that program after I graduated. So I did research on that, on like what schools had really good law schools that I could go into directly after. And then I did ones that were just in the environment I liked, and I emailed all of them. So yeah, I did some research for sure, but especially before recruiting, just so that I knew who to reach out to that I'd even be interested in, and schools that I wasn't interested in at all, so that I wasn't going to reach out to people I didn't really want to go there. So I would definitely find 20 or so schools that you can pick from 20 schools. Like hopefully 20 is a good number where you don't want too many more, where you're just like, I could see myself maybe going there if I have the opportunity, even if you don't really know much about them, but like a possibility. And just those are the schools you reach out to, because again, it's easier to get recruited when people actually know your name rather than just by chance. I mean, it's just hard when schools don't know you, they're not going to recruit you. So reaching out to them beforehand helps a lot. So I reached out to schools that I would want to go to, and then they showed interest back. So yeah, I would definitely recommend finding some schools beforehand that you would like to go to.
Let me use that word research, because I want to hear it from your end, because I've been an old coach for a long time. How much time did you put in? So you took your 5 trips, whatever you took. How much time did you put in researching those schools before you went on trips to know about their programs? Like,
Right.
what did you make sure you knew?
See, I mean, only 2 of the schools that I was recruited by were ones that I actually researched beforehand. So like the other ones were schools that like maybe didn't find me by chance, but like they went to a few of our games. I knew that, but like I wasn't necessarily emailing them back and forth. Like I just was.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it would just happen to be like that way. And so those schools that like the 3 schools that maybe I didn't really know much about, like I didn't research them beforehand because I didn't really necessarily had that much interest beforehand. But the schools that I were interested were ones that were in Alabama and like in the South. So I did research them beforehand, and I knew kind of about them anyway. Again, like I'm in Alabama, so like I knew who South Alabama was. It wasn't like I had to research that much. But I mean, again, I didn't really like South Alabama. Go Jags now, but like I wasn't a fan. We were Troy fans back in the day, so I didn't research that much. I didn't know that much about them, but I did know the area. I knew it was an hour from the beach, so that was a good little extra thing going on there. And I knew the coach was. I actually knew the coach was a really good coach beforehand. I mean, I'm pretty sure even Katie's head coach at Troy likes the head coach at South Alabama. So like I knew she was a good person and a good coach before that. And then the other schools I were interested in, I knew they had good law schools actually. So like that was a school I actually researched that had a good law school that I was interested in. So only 2 of the schools I spent time researching beforehand, but again, it can happen in different ways.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I will add this too, just because I know your experience with the 2 or 3 schools that were further away. Because I remember being older, sis. I was like, you don't want to go that far. Like and she really was. She was like, I don't know. Like maybe I do, because the schools that she was recruited by, like she really liked the location, even though it was far. And I remember, I was like, you don't want to go, whatever. And dad and mom, they were both just like, well, let's just go. And let's see. And I know that when you travel to those schools, you did kind of see like the flight and seeing kind of how hard it was to get there. And that, I think experiencing that and like seeing it for yourself, like gave you better clarity. So I think too, if you are a player that maybe you're not sure, you're like, I think I want to stay closer, but I don't know, maybe I do want to go 8, 9, 10 hours away. Definitely, I think if you have the opportunity, if you're still interested in that school and the program, and the only thing that's stopping you is that distance, like I think it would be a good thing to go on and see that travel, and see kind of what it's like. Because you might be like, oh, I can do this. This isn't really that bad. Or, oh my gosh, like I don't know if that's a long way to go. Like now I can see it. So I think that too, like the distance part, because some people really just don't know. I knew I didn't want to go far from the jump. Like I knew that. Presley's always been. She's the third. She's
Interested for sure.
She's the last. She's the baby. She's like, maybe I can go off and go do it. She's like, I don't know, maybe. Me and my brother are more homebodies, but she was more, oh yeah, maybe. So I think too, that's really important. If you are 27, about to go to that process, and you aren't really sure with distance, and you like the program that's recruiting you, and you like the coaching staff, and all of that is a yes, and that's the only thing stopping you, I think it's a really good thing to go, whether it's on a visit or go, travel there for the weekend, see what that travel is like. Because that might give you better clarity on that. So being a freshman, you've already done that, been there, done that. A lot of the freshmen are a part of the recruiting visits a lot of the time. So now being on the other side of it and having been through it as a recruit, and now also having been the host and being the player that recruit talks to, is there anything that you see, or you're like, man, like that's actually really important that I didn't think about before, but now that I'm on the other side of it, like I really wish people knew more about? Is there anything in particular you can think of?
Sure. Again, she said, I was a freshman this past year, so we did a few visits with unofficial visits and official visits. And I mean, I just would be aware of people are paying more attention than you think they are. And so just making sure your comments are like, if you're interested, like show interest in the school at all times. I mean, you're there on a visit, so like sometimes people might not be that interested in it, and that's okay. But if you're interested in that school at all and you actually want to have a chance there, like just make sure you like show that interest while you're there with the people who are there. And then also just trying to like actually formally build relationships with the people you're with. Like if I was 18, I guess, when I did these visits, and I know you're like 16 or 15 or 17, so you're younger, but like you can still try to build those relationships and those connections so that, again, like you can try to test how you are with the other teammates. So like just kind of make sure I would recommend like putting more effort into trying to relate with the people on the team. I mean, it might be your future teammates. It might not be. It might be. So making sure like that's how you test. Like there's ways to test if you like the school, and trying to be like friends with them and like relate to them is a big way in doing that, because if it works out where you don't really like how they are towards you, or you don't like how they act or they talked, or you just don't you don't relate to them, then maybe that's not the school for you, and that's okay, but you tried and you tested it. So I know some people are probably a little bit shy and a little bit like not really outgoing, and that's completely fine, and we get that 100%. We're not saying you have to go be this most outgoing person ever, but just a little effort and making sure you show the interest is for sure something that I would do on your official or unofficial visits while you're there and you have the opportunity to try things out. I would just really take advantage of that, because sometimes I feel like I didn't all the time. Like I just was kind of shy and sat in the corner and like didn't really talk to them. And maybe that's why my perspective on them wasn't that great. Like that might be a reason. It might be my fault. You never know. So just really test out the people you're with so that you know how you're going to be with them, and if you go to that school.
Yeah, and I know too, and this was my experience, and I don't know how it was for you. My coaches, if I had a recruit, that Monday after their visit, they would be like, hey, what'd you think about that recruit? Like, anything I need to know, whatever. Were they respectful? Were they nice? Like, what'd you think about them? And usually the coaches are very strategic about who they place hosts and recruits with.
Right.
They trusted me. And if I said, oh, she was honestly really rude, or I don't know, like they went with, like, they went with that. Not that I'm saying they didn't recruit her at all, but that was like, oh, okay, that's really good to know. Or if I was like, oh my gosh, she was really nice, so respectful, whatever, like, okay, perfect. That's like another check mark. So I think that people may not realize that you really do use the players to kind of gauge that recruit to see, how they act around everybody else when the coach isn't watching, which is, I know Carrie says a lot that the coaches are watching even when they aren't physically there.
Well, you have to understand that recruiting, whether it's official, unofficial, 27s, 6s, you're going to affect your culture, and your culture as a team takes a lot of work to build. So, it's really important to have more than just they can pitch, catch, hit, throw. There's got to be that that we talk about all the time. So I agree 100% with what Presley is saying in regards to that. If you could grab a 2027, because I know just in talking to them, people who seem super calm are already starting to get that, oh my gosh, it's happening. If you could grab them and put them in a room and give them this one piece of advice for the fall, what would it be? And I know you've hit on a lot of things, but literally let's just say somebody offered to pay you a ton of money to sit in there and talk to every 2027 to say, look, the fall's coming, this is it, and this is what the one thing I want you to stay grounded in. What would it be?
I would just say really just trusting where you're at, and it's gonna again, trusting the process and where you're gonna end up. I mean, yeah, you're gonna be stressed. I mean, I'm not gonna tell you just don't stress, it's gonna be fine. I mean, you're gonna stress. I get that. I stress. I can't say that it's not stressful, but I mean, it really does work out how it's gonna work out. I mean, looking back at where I was in the fall of my junior year to where I am now, but if you asked me that in the fall, like I would be like, I have no idea. Like I am so conflicted. So I would just say really just like trusting and kind of living it out. I mean, most of y'all still have to play school ball or travel ball in the fall. And I mean, you don't want to get too stressed about that either. You're just playing a game. And I mean, it's going to work out how it's going to work out. So just kind of trusting that and having confidence in your journey and your gut feeling it too. Like if you feel like this is where you want to go, like maybe that is where you want to go. If you're feeling something bad, then maybe that's not where you want to go. And I think just trusting yourself and what you want. And also my major piece of advice I actually would give, this is probably a better piece of advice now thinking back on it, it's not comparing yourself to other people in the place. I mean, I did it a lot too. It's a natural human thing is to compare. I mean, I get that, but you're not going to be in the same process as someone else, and that's completely fine. Even if you don't think it is, it's completely fine. If you don't commit September 3rd, it's completely fine if you do. Like, it's your own thing and it's your own plan, and at the end of the day, it's what you wanted. So I would just trust what you want and don't compare yourself. Have your own journey separate from everyone else, and try to keep your own opinion and try to block out everyone else's opinion. I know it's hard. You want your mom and dad's opinion 100%. I get that. You want their approval, but it's not their college you're going to. They already went to college, or they didn't, but they already experienced it. So it's your time now to pick what you want to do. So just try to really just trust yourself, mainly, is what I'm talking about here, is just trust what you want and what you want to do and what you feel, and go with that.
Yeah.
I love that. And I think the thing that I hear in everything that you're saying, and I think it's a word that I constantly talked about all recruits, all people that I'm talking to all the time, is it's that honesty factor. Like, be honest with yourself, but even more importantly, be honest with the people who are recruiting you. Because
Yes.
softball feels like it's big and it's all this, but it's a small world. So if
It
you're
really-
saying one thing to one group, you have no idea who played with who to the other schools, and they all talk. So
Yeah.
the only thing that can happen with not being honest is it come back to hurt you. It's not going to hurt the other programs. It's going to hurt you. So
Yeah.
everything you say points to that. Be honest with yourself. Be honest with the people. And even though honesty sometimes is hard, it's better to be honest and upfront and get the hard off, because then everybody can recoup and recover from that. On the other side, they can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll end it with one more question. I know the answer. We went through it before we started recording, but it's amazing. So I feel like when it comes to recruiting, and I know I had probably way more awkward moments than I was 14. I was a lot younger, and I already was naturally more awkward. So I know I had a ton. But I feel like everyone has those a few awkward moments. Maybe it's in the beginning of the recruiting process. You're talking to all these coaches. You're a little nervous. You're young. You're 16. Do you have any like awkward or just funny recruiting moments that like you look back and you're like, I cannot believe that happened?
Yeah, I definitely do, and sometimes we still talk about it to this day. And so, well, one time I was texting.
But you have the inside story already, Katie.
One time I was texting like my coach, Coach McCain, shout out. She's our hitting coach, and we were just texting back and forth. I think she like told me something, and I went to text back like yes, ma'am, but like I just put MAAM because I didn't feel like doing the apostrophe. And Google decided, or my phone decided to change that because they said it was incorrect spelling to yes, mama. And I sent it, and it sent as yes, mama. Yeah, so I called her, and it happened more than once, actually. I think it happened twice. So this is even more, I let it happen again. So, and it was like, I think the first time was literally like maybe in the month of September. So we were like fresh. Like, we can't even say like, we were like on that level. Like, we were. I was like, yes, mama. And so I said like, ma'am, asterisk, ma'am, I meant ma'am. And she was just like, mama. And I did it again when I was committed there, and I was like, I gotta stop. And so I think I actually went into my like Google like settings, and like whenever I type ma'am, didn't let it change anymore. So now like if I do it, it won't happen again because I made sure of it, because 2 times was enough.
You call your mother, your mama, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, it's so embarrassing.
I love that.
Like,
And
I didn't want to tell it wrong. I was like, yes, mom. I mean, you can't unsend it. And she like read it.
well, I think that's really a great thing that you just pointed out as a piece of advice is your generation is got the fastest thumbs in the West and tech.
I'll check what you're gonna.
Guys talking acronyms and you say bruh and all that. For me,
Yeah.
as an older coach, like I told my daughter, I'm like, if I get angry as your mother, if you call me bruh, please don't send that to college coaches and those kind of things, you know. And I think it's a really important thing to slow down and think about what you're texting until you at least have that relationship developed. So that, I mean, mama's not that bad, I guess. At least it wasn't a phone.
I just sent that maybe, but I changed it. I should.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. But I love that. I love that.
That's awesome.
So that's so cool.
It all worked out. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, she ended up going there, so it's not like it, it didn't,
It was funny.
didn't affect anything. That was just a funny story. Well, thanks, Presley, for hopping on, giving your insight. I'm sure Extra Inning Softball will see her around doing other stuff. So thanks again, and we'll see you guys
Absolutely.
next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Voices from the Field, presented by Extra Inning Softball. Don't forget to follow us on social media, subscribe to us on Spotify, and visit our website at extrainningsoftball.com for more stories, rankings, and updates from around the game. We'll see you guys next week.